Yesterday, I might have said that Florida State was going to lose to Syracuse going into the season of football. Maybe got a little tussle with some of those Noles fans. Would love to have that conversation about the Atlantic today with my guy, Drizzy Drake, in general, because we all know it's going to be challenging. So, who's going to step up to the plate? Which quarterback is going to surprise people? Maybe it will be Jordan Travis. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Locked On ACC. I'm your host, Candace Cooper. Drizzy Drake on our Freestyle Friday is in the building. He's host of Locked On Seminoles podcast, and we make it do what they do every single week. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, so Drizzy Drake, yesterday I had this whole episode talking about the new quarterback for Syracuse, Carlos Del Rio Wilson. He's coming out of Florida. He's got 4 years of eligibility. He's feeling good to go. Then I said to myself, all right, well, let's just see who Syracuse is playing because, I always go through the list. Will it even matter that they have a new quarterback? Because I was just went through every game, and I'm like, yeah, they'll beat Wagner and they'll beat UConn. But after that, it's getting a little dicey. And then I gave them a fair shake against Louisville and Florida State. So I put out a little tweet, that they'll win 3 games. One of them just might be Florida State. And you would have thought that the whole world was coming to an end. The Noles fans, they were like, oh, really? Word, bet? Okay. Now, we can talk to the realistic Seminoles fan here, Seminoles expert here. Why on earth is it so off base to say that Syracuse might mess around and beat Florida State this season?
It's Syracuse. No, I'm joking. No, it's well, for one, Carlos Del Rio Wilson's a non-proven commodity. That's for one thing. He couldn't beat out Emory Jones, nor could he beat an AR-15. He also can't beat out Jack Miller, the transfer that was coming in from Ohio State. 2, that offensive line we know is worse, is probably bottom like 2 in the ACC, and it's not 2. Who's he throwing the ball to? They have Sean Tucker, which was great and all, but we saw how last year, we were able to contain him somehow, some way. And that was one of our better wins last year. Took a lot out of it because they were mainly in the game because Gary Schrader had like 180 yards rushing, which was absolutely absurd. And now I do know that I'm not the biggest Jordan Travis guy out there, but he was the reason why we won that game. And a large stretch of the fashion, it's just more that I don't believe that Syracuse has like the players at all period right now, because I think you said it best yesterday where Carlos Del Rio Wilson is going to have to learn a playbook starting in May. He's going to have 5 months to acclimate and have chemistry with wide receivers, where Gary Schrader is already there. Tommy DeVito's gone. You have younger kids coming in too. So overall, Syracuse, they might win 2 games. I think 2 is the right number. And yeah, I'm glad that we were able to address the slander from me.
Well, truthfully, I feel like it doesn't matter for Syracuse at this point. I think the damage is done for Dino. And after all that's happened with Tommy DeVito and Garrett Schrader, I don't know why you would even have a quarterback competition, especially this late in the game, bringing somebody in. That's just it's a little too late for me. I love you, guy. I've been rooting for you, but bringing a quarterback competition when you've already had that issue. You need to focus on your offensive line. You need to focus on your wide receiver. There's other pieces to the puzzle that should have been addressed. But maybe they're so stressed about Schrader that they're like, listen, anybody willing and able. Because it's not just, Carlos. It's also Jack Villari. Dan Villari from Michigan transferring. So you got 3 transfers. And you got one guy who's been there since his junior year. Since freshman year, he's probably, if you can't beat Garrett Schrader. So yeah, they're in a bit of a pickle. But, overall, I think that the Atlantic Division is just so competitive. And as we transition to that conversation, that it'll be truly difficult for everybody. And, we talked about on Wednesday shows with AJ Black about the quarterbacks in this bad boy. And of course, didn't mention Jordan Travis about being NFL draft ready. But, there's still the conversation of this season going in, and a lot of these teams, especially in the Atlantic, have really strong quarterbacks. And so if we want to go through the list, I'm perfectly fine with that. But how it stacks up against Florida State, one of the other points I brought up in my little scuffle yesterday on Twitter was the fact that they don't have a new quarterback or a new coach. So, like, respectfully, Mike Norvell, did he get exponentially better this season? Will he get exponentially better this season in his coaching abilities? Will Jordan Travis get exponentially better? Because last season, it was all about the defense and Jermaine Johnson. Now I'm sitting here saying, all right, well, what else you got?
I will
Sell me.
say, Jermaine Johnson, one of his 3 worst games was against Syracuse. Actually, was probably a much of a no-name for that. So that's actually, I actually looked at that before we started recording today. But I mean, you
Love
are
it.
right. Mike Norvell, is still there, and I'm not the biggest Mike Norvell fan, but what we haven't been able to see is Mike Norvell being able to run purely his true offense, and that's primarily because of the limitations of James Blackman from 2 seasons ago, and
Mhm.
also from Jordan Travis. And now it's starting to get to the point where I think Mike has to understands that he needs to be able to cater his playbook a lot more to Jordan Travis's skill set, whereas a lot more runs, a lot more play action, RPO, because we do have a great running back room. We had Jason Corbin last year and Trayshawn Ward. Trayshawn Ward comes back. We're bringing Trey Benson from Oregon. And also, roster-wise, this defense is a lot stronger, I think, coming in,
Mhm.
even though we did lose Jermaine Johnson. We bring in Jared Verse, transfer from Albany. We're bringing Tatum Bethune to help out a very weak linebacking core. We also have Sam McCall, Zary Thomas, cornerbacks coming in that, quite frankly, our team is a lot deeper than last year. And also, we finally have 9 offensive linemen in rotation. Last 2 years ago, we had 6. You need 5
Mhm.
to start offensive line. And yet last year, we had 7. Now we got 9. Now we actually have options to pick and play. And if someone goes down, you don't have to call me up to play offensive guard. I'll do it, but you got to pay me for it. You got to pay me a little bit because of the insurance bills. But hey, like we can do it. But it's overall, it's the roster top to bottom. This is probably the best roster we've had, I think, since maybe Taggart's second season. So 3 years
Mhm.
ago, 4 years ago, because his first year was pretty loaded. But overall, roster wise, it's much better. But we need to see Jordan Travis take the next step forward because his first year was a lot of running. Last season, like, okay, we can see you throw the ball, but we don't have that many options wide receiver. Now you bring in Johnny Wilson, Micah Pittman, Winston Wright Jr., who was, I think, led the Big 12 in receptions last year at WVU. You got options. And also the excuses are running out because there's a freshman by the name of AJ Duffy who definitely might be able to take that job by the end of the season then. So to me, I think there's a lot of changes going on, but it's also the roster is actually a lot more talented, even though we did lose Jermaine Johnson.
All right, well, there's more of the story, but I'm going to do a comparison literally to every team in the Atlantic Division because I want to make sure that every Florida State team is listening. All the other people who are listening, they can listen about their respective school. Where do the Seminoles stand up? But first, guys, as you know, BetOnline is our number one source for all of your sports wagering needs. Find all the latest news, odds, sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs. So sorry about your Heat, Drizzy Drake. It's tough. I know. Game 5, you thought they were going to win it at home. But there's still 2 opportunities to get in on that betting action. So, there's that. MLB, got scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline has all your sports wagering information, live betting, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline is where the game starts. Now we're speaking with Drizzy Drake here, Locked on Seminoles podcast, and as I mentioned with that Bet Online read, that the Miami Heat are, close to elimination. I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Because I know my
I'm
guy.
fi Girl, I'm
You're
fine.
fine. Okay.
Did you see the tweet that the Celtics put out last night?
No, I didn't.
They tweeted out to me like, "Oh, yeah, 10 years ago today, I went over to Miami for game 5 and we took a 3-2 series lead." I'm like, "You remember that game 6 was the LeBron James game where he had that death stare, mean mugging everybody, right?" And I'm just like, "No, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm pretty sure Jimmy's gonna go for 40, even though I'm pretty sure Peyton Pritchard, what's up, my guy? You might want to not take lessons from Grayson Allen how to play basketball. But overall, like, hey, we're good. We're good. So
Ah.
Kyle Lowry needs to sit though, because his hamstring is it's cooked. It's
It's out of here. All right, good enough. But we are having a conversation about football today. And so I wanted to make sure that all my Florida State fans feel a little bit better after listening to this episode, or maybe my other schools in the Atlantic Division. They'd be like, listen, let's do a little comparison. And I'm not seeing it. So one by one, we're going to do it. Boston College will face off, this season. Well, not face off this season, but in comparison to Florida State, if you had to say this team can, make the better record in order to be the Atlantic Division champion, Florida State and Boston College, Phil Jacoby, Jordan Travis. You've got a really good Zay Flowers against a pretty decent, Florida State receiving corps. Defensive wise, I would, err on the side of the Seminoles to Boston College, but overall, you've got Coach Halfley in year 3, really trying to figure it out. I edge with the coaching, giving it to Boston College. But what are your thoughts there on just if we had to pick Atlantic Division champion?
I would probably go Boston College, but strongly enough,
Really?
I think that I'm a big believer in Jeff Halfley. I
Mm-hmm.
do like Phil Dracovic, even though I wouldn't have him as number 2 in my
Mm-hmm.
rankings. Like AJ had on Thursday. Folks listening to that was a great listen. But this is a game where actually we play them super early, and I think
Yeah.
we catch them early. But I think once they finally hit their stride and Phil Dracovic stays fully healthy, because people forget that man had a wrist surgery and literally to his throwing wrist and came back 6 weeks later and was like, "Why is he throwing the ball?" I'm like, "My man, he has like stitching and like cuts all over his wrist. Well, like, why wouldn't he be able to throw it?" And then you have Zay Flowers, who is a top 2, top 3 wide receiver in the ACC. Josh Downs is number 1. I'm like, isn't Josh Downs still here? So overall, with Phil Dracovic and that, it's just the defense is not great, and our defense is much better. But they do bring back a Jaden Woodby,
Mm-hmm.
which is a huge key for them. But to me, I would probably, because right now I have FSU at 7-5. I can see Boston College pushing for like the 8-4 spot.
8-4 spot. Okay, look at you. Well, I think that to me, there's been a lot of conversation about whether or not Halfley will be around after this year. So a lot's riding on whether or not he's able to pull it out. But I don't know. I don't know that I would like him to stay just because I like good coaches staying in the ACC, but I don't know if I'm feeling that. However, all right, Louisville and Florida State. I feel like Louisville, we all know we're big Malik Cunningham fans over here. Will he be enough? That defense did not get exponentially better. Coach Satterfield, when you do a Coach Satterfield and Mike Norvell comparison, it's like, all right, well, if I have to pick somebody.
And strongly enough, I'm going to take Mike over Scott, because I think Scott Chappell's is not a good head coach. And
Yeah.
I think the only reason he's still got a job is because Malik Cunningham is that damn good. But who's Malik Cunningham throwing the ball to? Marshawn Ford, I think, is still there, right?
Yes,
Tyler Harrell's gone.
he
Nick Saban
is.
was like, "Hey, Tyler, we need some more receivers down here." In that specific voice after Jimbo yelled at him. But like that to me, like in the defense, I know they bring in Jarvis Brownlee Jr. to be cornerback, but they also lost Greedy Vance, who we basically did a swap and trade with for in transfer purposes. So overall, like, because Louisville, to me, they'll go as far as Malik Cunningham can take them, but but he needs much more help. Like, it's literally going to be the same thing that we had 2 years ago, where there's no supporting cast around him on the offense. Period.
Agreed. And I think that overall the Louisville Cardinals they're built off Malik and then nobody else. And I'm shocked he stayed in a world where, really good quarterbacks go to transfer portal so they can get, bigger lights, stages, all that good stuff. It's in it. Well, I mean, I know he has a good relationship with Lamar Jackson, but still, I don't know that Louisville's going to give him what he needs when it comes to just not even exposure, but just in terms of like giving you the right numbers, giving you the best offense, giving you the best offensive line, all that good stuff. So hopefully they get through, but I would err on the side of the Seminoles in that one. All right, Wake Forest and Florida State. Homecoming game for y'all, Wake Forest. Wake Forest doesn't want to be a fluke. They're trying to figure out how to repeat what they did last season and all the magic that came with that. Beat Florida State last year, but it was a decent game. However, you got Hartman versus Jordan Travis, all the like. That defense got a year older. They're starting to figure themselves out. Who you picking?
This one's hard because Jordan Travis didn't play that game.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that was Mackenzie Milton, who had 6 turnovers.
Okay, McKenzie. Shout out to my dog. I hope
Yeah,
he's doing
shout
well
out.
wherever
Yeah.
he's at.
I think he's gonna be a coach somewhere, actually. I know he's got that Dreamfield business, which is great. And I think he just got married. Congratulations, my guy. But overall, I
Yeah.
think Sam Hartman is the better QB, and A.T. Perry made a lot of us forget about Jacory Roberson last year. But
Mm-hmm.
then Christian Beal Smith is gone, so I don't know who the running backs are going to be. Zach Tom on the left tackle is gone. He was the main reason why Jermaine Johnson wasn't able to do anything. Because Zach
Mm-hmm.
Tom, I think, might have been one of the most underrated linemen that came into the draft this past season.
Agreed.
And that defense, though, is super young, but it's more that defense. I don't know if youth was an excuse, because they just were all over the place last year, and we saw. Like, I mean, the
It
UNC
was
game
bad.
is a perfect example. Like, I'm like, "You
Yeah.
have that game," 'cause I had money on that game. I'm sitting there, I'm like, "Yo, you can win this," and then I'm just like, "What the hell are you doing?" So to me, overall, I think Florida State would probably edge this one out because I do think that this is a game that we're probably gonna be coming in as underdogs, and it's earlier enough in the season too where I think that we're able to catch them sleeping, and we've never lost to Wake 3 years in a row. Right now, we're at 2. I can
Okay.
we can't be having that, and if we have that, whoo, there's gonna be a very, very tough conversation in the Moore Center, but I have FSU actually kinda stealing this one.
All right. Well, Syracuse is another team that we mentioned will be playing. I know your thoughts there, but they got two big dogs here. You got NC State and Clemson. Those are two teams that I feel like are competing for the ACC to, not only the championship or in the Atlantic, but also to win the whole kit and caboodle. So starting out with NC State, Florida State, NC State, never really thought this would be much of a rivalry, but it's turned into like really, a strong one here with Doran's era. I'm just feeling like NC State's winning the whole thing. You can't convince me otherwise. With Devin Leary, with that defense, 10 out of 11 starters returning, I don't see anybody beating them but themselves. So, hate to
That's
break it
kinda
to you.
that's how I feel, and I think
Yeah.
we do drop this one to NC State. I think the NC State game is actually it's in Raleigh, and,
Mhm.
Devin Leary's really damn good. He's probably the most underappreciated QB that we have actually in the conference. He doesn't make mistakes at all, period. He's athletic enough to get out the pocket, and I mean,
Mhm.
he has weapons around him too as well, and also I think just Dave Doeren is a really, really damn good head coach. Now we're gonna have to see whether or not 9 wins is his ceiling because he's hitting 3 I think he's won 9 wins 3 times. He needs to get the 10th win.
Right.
And to me, that defense also it brings back Cyrus Fagan, who was playing well before the injury. It brings back
Mhm.
Corey Durden, who found, back to his top tier all ACC defensive line ways actually at NC State. So to me, that's a very, very tough team to play against. It's a team that's been around each other for a very long time, and I think their returning production also is, like, probably tops in the country too when it comes to players they're bringing back. So, yeah, NC State, that's a really damn good team. I would that to me, that probably would be the possible favorite for the Atlantic and not for Clemson.
Now, if Florida State were to, pull this one off, make the upset, all of those good things, would you feel like the tides are turning for the Noles and maybe Norvell is figuring it out? Maybe there are sparks of glimmers of hope that things will kind of look better for the Noles. They're building on something different, and maybe we can extend a little grace to Norvell
If we win that game, whoo, okay.
in Raleigh.
That's a one that's in Raleigh. Raleigh's hard as hell to play. They're so damn close. They can leave and come back in and get some more drinks. It's a rowdy crowd. Like, it's
Yeah, Carter Finley gets crazy.
crowder friendly gets wild, and not only that, it's that's a tough stretch. I think you play Duquesne first, but then LSU, the bye week, you play Louisville, Boston College, Wake Forest, NC State. That's
Mhm.
a very, very, like, challenging row, and if you tell me you're gonna beat NC State, that means probably you're gonna beat one of Wake Forest and Boston College. You probably also beat Louisville, so if you're 4-2 and, like, you're able to take the majority of games from that stretch, yeah, I will be probably the first one to admit that I'm like, "Oh my god, there's a proof of concept here," because my man has 8 wins in 2 years.
Mhm.
So that's nothing much really to be any positive about, but if you give me 4, you're already halfway there to your win total from 2 seasons. So, like, to me, that's honestly great.
Yeah. Not only do you go from Wake Forest to NC State, but then you go to right after to Clemson. And that to me is probably one of the toughest stretches for ACC football this season because you got three who are vying for opportunities, and then it's you who's historically been the person who's coming and taking away chances of being that dominant team. So, like Clemson, DJU, can he figure out how to throw this season? Can he throw consistently? Can he hit his targets? Can he not look nervous? Can he not look crazy when he's out there, right? Does he have a better offensive lineman? Will Shipley Jr., he's definitely going to be helping him, right? You don't have that conversation about Justin Ross anymore. Like, you're pretty much the man out here. But you also got that defense who's without Brett
Yeah.
Venables. Are they going to be all right?
They got Brian Brzee, right?
They did.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
They still do. With Clemson, it's that game, I'm not gonna lie to you, Candace, I think I texted you, was probably the most angry I've been with this team because I saw that Jermaine Johnson sack fumble, and then I'm
Mhm.
like, "Oh my god, we're actually gonna beat them," and then I see the damn play calling that we have for the rest of the damn game, and not only did we lose, we also fumbled into our own end zone and failed to cover too. So overall, like to me, like that game last year was super winnable. So to me, it shows that Clemson's beatable, and that was with Brett Venables. But I think we're gonna see a lot of different things from Clemson this season, primarily because I think Dabo is gonna have to relinquish some of the play calling back to his new hired OC because
Please, Lord.
my man can't scheme X's and O's. I'm sorry, he's not good at that. There's a reason why he almost got fired in year 3 when he was first at Clemson. And then with DJU, I think he has the talent. He has all the intangibles. He's basically what an NFL draft GM scout, dreams of. But if he doesn't play well, I remember when Kelly Bryant sucked his first 3 or 4 games, and then Kate Klubnik came right on in. So to me, as it stands right now, I'll probably take Clemson to beat us out in this one because primarily it's more that I need to see how they play the first few weeks of the season. But I think right now, as it stands, Clemson's probably the main team to beat, probably Frank State to win the Atlantic.
Yeah, I would agree. And I just think overall, I want Clemson to be good because for the sake of the national outlook of the ACC, it's important for them to be good, right? It's important for there to be a real conversation. And, NC State, they can bring the fans, and they can bring, the energy, but it's just not the same as Clemson and the way people have, aired on the side of giving them more love. So if Clemson's good, it lifts the ACC. If there is a dogfight, we are beating each other up, quote unquote, it would be the same as the SEC. So all the conversation around the SEC being so great and being bottom feeders because they eat each other up. Listen, ACC, maybe it'll do the same thing this year. I don't know. But we got a lot of good games head-to-head happening, and I think that a lot of people have a lot of things to prove. But the Noles, most importantly, the Atlantic Division, have a lot to prove because Mike Norvell, this is the year where we got to see something shake. 8 wins in 2 years is tough. We over here talking about Durham getting 9 wins.
It's not tough. It's piss poor. It's piss poor. No. Like that's you fire Willie Taggart and his buyout is $5 million.
Yeah.
Norvell's salary is $3.5 million. You're paying my man $8.5 million. You're basically paying Mike Norvell $1 million per win the past 2 seasons.
That's insane. More than that, though, clearly from what I saw yesterday, the fan base, they be firing off at the slightest diss. So I can only imagine what they'd be saying about your boy. But overall, I think that it's going to be a really good season. I think the Atlantic, per usual, is going to be the most competitive, but I ain't going to sleep on the Coastal because you are playing who I think is going to win the whole thing, and that's Miami.
Ooh.
The Coastal, win the Coastal.
Oh, okay. I was about to say.
Not the whole thing. Not the actual ACC.
They haven't won the conference since they joined, so I don't know.
No. Not the whole conference. Let me make sure I be clear before somebody gets in these comments. But shout out to, Locked on Canes. I say it all the time, but my buddy Alex Dono has been taking off. He got 1,000 subscriber in 2 days.
Yeah, that man's been putting work. He was 13 shows. I got 1 subscribers. I was like, oh man, we need to get you on.
How, Sway? I'm over here giving him tips, but give me tips. What the hell? But it's also, I have to remember fan bases go hard. And that's a very go hard fan base. And so when it comes to that game, I'm interested to see. Maybe it'll actually be a good one this year for y'all, between y'all.
I mean, last year was.
Yeah.
Last year was a damn good game, even though I was having a heart attack in the second half because we were basically pulled the UNC where we're just like, oh, we're going to put the lead out and just hold on for dear life. But
yeah,
with this Miami game, this is going to be a tough one for me because I think you beat either them or Florida. I don't think you beat both, and I think Florida is going to be the one we beat more next year, primarily because I am a big believer in Mario Cristobal. I think it's going to actually bring them back to where they want to be eventually. I mean, we were the first one to say back in November that Manny was going to get fired and Mario was coming in, so a shout out to us. But overall, Josh Gass, I think is a great OC. My only concern, though, for them is Kevin Steele. The former Auburn defense coordinator. Reports are that defense looks pretty bad, 50 Shades of Booty. So overall, it's not playing that well at all. And with Tyler Van Dyke, I love Tyler Van Dyke. I mean, he converted me into a true believer last year. But who's throwing the ball to? Charleston Rambo's gone. They don't have a true wide receiver number 1 threat. I mean, Frank Latson from Clemson, he came in. I think he had 4 catches last year at Clemson. Xavier Restrepo, good kid. Drops the ball all the damn time. Michael Redding, it's whatever. So they're going to probably be, to me, leaning a lot more on Jalen Knighton, Don Chaney, Thad Franklin, the running backs. And also, Mario Cristobal does have a thing with QBs where he likes to run QB power. I don't know how that man didn't win the Pac-12 more than once with Justin Herbert, but hey, that's just me.
100%. I'm still laughing at 50 Shades of Booty. That's hilarious
I
for many
I
reasons.
usually say 50 Shades of Ass, but, you know.
But, you know, kids listen to the show. No doubt about it. Well, Drizzy Drake, it's always a pleasure to kick it with you on Freestyle Fridays. So glad that I put that tweet out there because it gave us a whole show to talk about. But more importantly, can you please remind these folks where they can find you, follow your work?
All right, folks, you can follow me at Tally__Drake. You can follow Candace at Candace D. Cooper, as you can see down below. You can follow my co-host at Locked On Seminoles for at Max Moody 17. And also follow us at Noles Anonymous, where basically we engage with the fan base, get themes for our questions, do our mandatory mailbag Monday. And folks, Candace is very good at her job. FSU Twitter, don't be coming after her. She just does it for fun. But also, that's her fans. But also, if you want the smoke, don't come from her because she will put you in your place really damn quick.
That's hilarious. You will get 50 Shades of Booty because I don't care. No, like I think because we do this, people assume like your passion is just like overzealous, and it's like I love this thing. Listen, I do what I do, but I'm not gonna sit here and lose sleep over a tweet from guys who are just really upset and in their feelings. Maybe I touched a nerve because the fact that we're even comparing Syracuse and Florida State, we've reached a low point. Okay, Seminoles, we've reached a low point, but it's fine. We can come back. We can figure it out.
Only we get to say that, Candace. That's
Okay,
the point.
so sorry. Sorry. I can't expose the wounds. If you expose it, then it means it's true. But here we are, nevertheless. Hope you guys have a great and safe Memorial Day weekend. Please be safe out here on these streets. Please be safe on these boats. Whatever you feel like you need to do, just make sure you be smart and safe about it. Come back to us on Monday. Hopefully, the company gives us a holiday. But if not, we're gonna talk more football. So it's all good to go. For Candace Cooper and Drizzy Drake, until next time.